20-year-old self today? Well, it's weird. I've never been asked that question before.
Really?
Yeah. Look, there's probably a lot I'd like to say. Well, actually, no, you have asked me this question before, and I think I said to you, move. I would have moved earlier, but if I put that to one side, because I've said that previously, for me, that's such a hard question to answer. And I know that when I see interviewers ask that of entrepreneurs, right? What advice would you give yourself if you're in your 20s? And I get it, but man, that's such a big question for me. How long's a piece of string, man? Like, there's so many things that I could say. And I don't think there's ever one thing for me, man. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's many things. I think it's cultural. I think it's intelligence, education. There's all these things rolling through my head right now when you ask me that question. So I don't know. And I don't think it's about what advice would you give them, because I just don't think it's that simple. I think it's so much more complex than that. If I was to say, but if I was to provide a synopsis, I would say, understand what you want and then chase education. That's what I would say. People go, do something, when you do something you're passionate about, you'll be successful. Wow, that's bullshit. Most young people don't know what they're passionate about, so that's a problem. And the second thing is, that's not necessarily true, because if you do what you're passionate about at the time you think you're passionate about it, will you be passionate about it forever? Normally what you do is you do something that you find interesting and you become super fucking good at it, and then you become passionate about it. That's actually how it works. Like, hey, I'm passionate about this. Well, great. How do you even know that you've been on this planet for 5 minutes? So how would you actually be able to validate that? Because passion comes from exposure, right? So you got to be exposed to things to figure out what you're passionate about, and you have to have experience to figure out what you're passionate about. You have to do lots of things to figure out what you're passionate about. You have to experience human beings, travel, and life to figure out what you're fucking passionate about. So when you're 19 or 20, you don't know what that means. You think you do, but you don't. And then you start chasing it, and then 3 years later you go, this really sucks. So, my advice I wouldn't give myself advice in my 20s to go, chase your passion, because I think that's bullshit. I would think, figure out what direction you want to head, even though it's right or wrong, just commit to it anyway, and then seek knowledge. I think that's always the way to do things. Know when to pivot, hang out with the right people, create a good belief system, make sure that it's solid and that you've done your research on it, and then go for it, and don't be afraid to fail. Again, that comes down to education though, because fear about failing is a lack of education. It's not innate in us. There's part of our DNA that protects us, I get that. But true fear of failing is not innate in us. I think you have to just create that through poor mindset psychology, right? Whereas if you looked at failure as you're one step closer to succeeding, well, that's where the game's played, right? And it is a game. So don't be afraid of failing. No, I'm really going on about a response to this question, and it probably doesn't even make a lot of sense, but I don't think it's one thing. I think it's many. But I certainly know that knowledge is part of it. Education and knowledge, learning is part of it. I hope that helps. I don't really know whether it does, but I'm trying to quantify it now, but